Revealed, the incredible journey of a mail-order bride transformed by a little girl's heart. Marisol stepped off the dusty bus, her heart pounding like thunder in the silence of the small Midwest town. She clutched her tattered suitcase, its fraying edges held tight in her hands. Inside it lay her hopes and dreams, a new life crafted from love and longing. At 30, she was a hard-working woman from a struggling village, leaving behind everything for a chance to build a family with Tom, a widowed veteran, and his bright, curious daughter, Lucy. They were her beacon of hope, a promise of warmth and acceptance in this foreign land. As she walked through the town, the autumn chill whipped around her, casting a shroud of uncertainty. Children played on the streets, laughter echoing like music, but as they caught sight of her, whispers cut through the cheer. "Look, the outsider," one shouted, and another chimed in, "She doesn't belong here." Marisol's chest tightened, and she felt the weight of their harsh words crash over her like a dark wave, igniting her fears and self-doubt. Determined to create a home, Marisol immersed herself in baking cookies with Lucy, the sweet aroma filling the modest kitchen. They laughed as flour coated their faces, and in those moments of joy, Marisol saw the spark of acceptance in Lucy's eyes. Together, they planted seeds in the neglected backyard, coaxing life from the soil. With every scoop of flour and each seed buried deep, she nurtured not just the garden but a bond with Lucy who seemed untethered by the labels others clung to. As the vibrant flowers began to bloom, she found herself blooming too, inch by inch, heart by heart. But whispers of prejudice lingered, an insidious mist that refused to dissipate, and Marisol pushed on. She believed in their shared love, in the promise that a garden could unite a community. Love, she thought, would triumph over bias. Then the annual town festival approached, and excitement stirred in her soul. It offered a coveted award for the best community project. This was her chance to prove her worth not just to the skeptical townsfolk but to herself. Yet, as she dreamt of winning, a storm rolled in, ferocious and wild. Winds howled, and rain lashed down, an unstoppable force that ravaged her garden, a garden that had become her symbol of hope and unity. The devastation was immense. Marisol stared at the wreckage, her heart breaking alongside the fragile blooms. Tom, caught in his conflicted feelings, felt the weight of a father's role press heavy upon him. Was he being a protector, or was he letting fear dictate his choices? Lucy, amid the ruins, looked from her father to Marisol, feeling torn between the two adults in her life. Her friendship with Marisol was vibrant, yet she sensed her father's resistance. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the festival looming closer, a flicker of hope emerged through the despair. Together, Marisol, Tom, and Lucy rallied to restore what was lost. They shared laughter amid their efforts, fighting against the tide of prejudice. They faced the storm outside, and as they labored, they began to confront the storm within. Would they rise together, the battle for acceptance echoing between them like a rallying cry? As dusk fell and the air chilled, whispers of judgment hung heavy, leaving Marisol at the edge of transformation. Would love and acceptance finally bloom from the ashes, or would she remain an outsider in search of belonging? Marisol stood in the remnants of her garden, the aftermath of the storm reflecting the turmoil inside her. She gazed at the wilted flowers that once danced vibrantly in the sunlight, their beauty now tarnished like her own dreams. The sky was clearing, but the weight of her heart felt heavier than ever. Tom was quiet beside her, his face etched with conflict and concern. The hope she had seen in his eyes was dimming, and as the silence stretched, she worried it might fade altogether. "Let us start again," Lucy said. Her small voice sliced through the stillness, filled with an innocent defiance that sparked something deep within Marisol. Lucy's optimism was a torch in the dark, and Marisol clung to it, desperate to believe there was still a chance to make things right. Tom turned to his daughter, a smile slowly creeping across his weary face. "Okay, we can do this. Together," he said, his voice steadier than she felt. The three of them surged forward, gathering the broken pieces of their shared dream. They worked long into the evening, laughter mingling with the soft twilight air. With every flower they replanted and every seed they sowed, Marisol felt a flicker of hope inside her. Maybe she wasn't an outsider anymore, maybe she was slowly becoming a part of this family. As they toiled, Marisol found herself glancing at Tom. She noticed the way his shoulders relaxed as Lucy giggled, how he took charge with gentle encouragement instead of frustration. Those moments anchored her, easing her worries about what the townsfolk would say, how they would react. Perhaps she might just belong here after all. Days turned into nights as the festival approached. The ground they had revived started to thrive, bursting with colors that echoed her passion. Each blooming flower felt like a triumph against the doubts that had threatened to drown her. But as the festival neared, the familiar whispers of the townspeople returned to haunt her. They'll never accept her. They'll always see her as the outsider, echoed in her mind like a relentless wind. Lucy sensed the tension looming in the air, and one afternoon, she tugged on Marisol's apron, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I have an idea," she exclaimed, pulling out a stack of colored paper, markers, and scissors. "What do you have up your sleeve?" Marisol asked, intrigued and hopeful. "I want to make signs for the garden. For everyone who comes to see it during the festival." Lucy beamed. "We can tell them what the flowers mean." Marisol's heart swelled. It was simple, but it was a way to open their world and perhaps, just perhaps, bring the community together in understanding. Together, they sketched images of flowers with bright meanings: love, courage, friendship. Each marker stroke was filled with intention, but as they prepared, Tom's hesitations surfaced again, his anxiety creeping in like shadows at dusk. He expressed his concerns. "What if folks still don't accept her?" "I don't want you to get hurt, Lucy. I'd hate to see our hopes crushed," he confessed, vulnerability in his voice. Marisol felt a pang of frustration. Didn't he see what Lucy saw? Love could bloom in unlikely places. But Tom's fears were not unfounded. She understood that even the best intentions could be met with resistance. She gently reached for his hand, grounding herself in that connection. "We must plant our seeds in the hearts of others, Tom," she said softly. "Sometimes all it takes is one person to let love break through the walls." Would the festival be their moment to shine? Or would darkness still loom in the hearts of their neighbors? And as they clung to hope, did they have enough strength to change minds? The festival day arrived with an electric buzz in the air, the anticipation crackling like the first touch of lightning after a storm. Marisol stood in her garden, heart pounding, pride swelling within her as she looked over the riot of colors they had crafted together. The flowers were bright and glorious, their meanings strung together like notes in a song. Love, courage, friendship, the signs they had created were nestled among the blooms, ready to share their story. As the sun rose higher, the world awakened around her. The town came alive with laughter and music, the scent of baked goods mingling with the crisp autumn air. Children dashed past her, their faces painted with joy, pulling parents along in their wake. Tom and Lucy were somewhere amidst the crowd, sharing that infectious excitement, and for a fleeting moment, Marisol allowed herself to dream about acceptance. Her heart raced as she stepped beyond the garden gate. The crowd thickened, faces new and familiar swirled in a sea of colors. One woman she recognized from the market, a frown creasing her brow as she caught Marisol's eye. Marisol swallowed hard, the fear clawing at her throat again. She braced herself, ready to face the whispers, the judgment, but determined to represent the love and connection they had fostered. "Look, Mom! It's the flower lady!" Lucy's joyous shout cut through the noise, and suddenly, attention shifted. Curiosity rippled through the crowd as Lucy, hand in hand with Tom, dashed towards her. Marisol's heart skipped. She knelt, arms wide, just as Lucy threw herself into her embrace. A wave of warmth washed over her. Then, without hesitation, Tom approached, a tentative smile etched across his face. "That garden, it's beautiful," he said, his voice sincere. "Thank you," she replied softly, feeling something deeper with each word. "You helped make it what it is. It's ours now." As they stood together, the smiles of passing children began to pull others in. People began to gather around, staring at the transformed space with wonder. Marisol raised her chin, inviting them in to experience what she had hoped to share. "Can we read the signs, Mommy?" Lucy asked, bubbling with excitement. "Of course. Let us start over here," Marisol said, her heart thumping in her chest, leading Lucy to the first sign. "This flower represents love like the love we spread in our hearts. It connects us all." One by one, they moved through the garden, each explanation welcoming the townsfolk closer. Skepticism lowered as smiles emerged like sunflowers reaching for the sun. Small conversations sparked, laughter mingling with delighted gasps. Two neighbors held hands as they read about friendship, their earlier disagreements forgotten in the warmth of the moment, but just as the atmosphere began to shift, Marisol noticed a familiar figure lingering at the edge of the crowd. Clara, the town's most vocal critic, stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Marisol's heart sank. Here was the first real test of their effort. "Mommy, why isn't she smiling too?" Lucy's voice broke her thoughts, small but unyielding. Marisol took a deep breath. "Sometimes, people take a little longer to understand," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. With determination mounting, Marisol stepped forward, approaching Clara with Lucy beside her, unassuming and hopeful. The crowd's atmosphere shifted again, murmurs trailing behind. She faced Clara, searching for the right words. "Clara," she began. "I truly believe that we can nurture understanding, just like these flowers. Would you join us?" In that moment, everything hung in the air, hope teetering on a precipice. What would Clara do? Would she grasp the olive branch extended before her, or retreat into her doubts? Marisol leaned in with her heart wide open, praying that love would be enough. What would Clara's response reveal about the heart of the community? Did they have enough courage to embrace the change they had all fought so hard to create? The tension crackled. Clara's gaze shifted from Marisol to the vibrant flowers surrounding them, hesitating as she processed the moment. The world around them faded into a distant hum, leaving only the two women standing at a crossroads. Marisol's heart raced, her palms sweating against her sides. "Marisol," Clara finally spoke, her tone sharp yet wavering. "You think this garden can change everything?" "Not everything," Marisol replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But small changes add up. This," she gestured to the blooms, "is just the beginning." Clara's brow furrowed deeper. Watching the crowd, Marisol could see the mixture of hope and uncertainty reflected in their faces. Would they rally behind her, or would Clara's opinion keep them at bay? She felt Lucy squeeze her hand tightly, an innocent gesture that breathed courage into her spine. "Why do you even care?" Clara continued, still unyielding. "You've lived apart from us for so long." "It's true," Marisol said, swallowing hard. "But I want to belong. To be part of this community. To show that we can create something beautiful together." The crowd stirred, and Tom stepped forward, uncharacteristically bold. "It's not about the past, Clara. It's about building a future. Look at how the kids are smiling. Look at how we've come together." He gestured at the growing group, faces lighting up with shared smiles and laughter. Clara's eyes darted to the group, uncertainty loosening her tight grip on disbelief. "But, you're different," she stammered, almost imploringly. "Different is okay," Lucy chimed in, her voice ringing with youthful brilliance. "Love is strong. The flowers say so." Marisol felt pride swell in her chest, pulling her closer to her daughter. If only Clara could see through Lucy's innocent wisdom. Their joy, so pure and open, was exactly what the town needed, what Clara needed. Clara bit her lip, glancing back at the crowd, then back at Marisol. "And what if I don't believe you?" It was the opening Marisol had been hoping for. "What if you let us show you? From one flower to another we can grow together." She stretched out her hand, heart pounding, the gesture simple yet profound. The silence that hung in the air was deafening. The crowd leaned in, anticipation rising. Marisol felt as if the weight of the world rested on this one fragile moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, Clara's posture softened. She uncrossed her arms, jaws unclenching. She faltered, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I don't know where to start." "Start by joining us," Marisol said, her voice steady. "Just one small step towards understanding." This was it. All the months of hard work, the painful yearning for connection, it all coalesced into this simple act of reaching out. A few moments stretched into eternity as Clara studied Marisol's face. Nobody breathed. The townsfolk held their collective breath as Clara took a single step forward. Lucy's eyes sparkled with excitement. "You can be part of our garden." Marisol felt a flicker of hope ignite, a chance for a breakthrough. Could one conversation, one interaction truly change the tides of the community? But then, as Clara opened her mouth to speak, an unexpected voice boomed from the back of the crowd. The air thickened with tension again, and Marisol's heart sank. "Hold on. You can't just ignore what she did to us." Who would dare challenge this fragile moment? Just when acceptance felt within reach, had the chance slipped away. Marisol turned to see an old neighbor whose face darkened with resentment. The festival's joyous atmosphere shifted, stirring doubt among the newly gathered crowd. What would happen next? Marisol's heart raced as she faced the crowd, swiftly assessing the murmurs and shifting expressions. Clara's tentative warmth now felt like ice, frozen in uncertainty. She glanced at Lucy, whose innocent excitement turned to worry. "Who are you to speak for everyone?" The neighbor continued, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some nodding in agreement, while others looked back and forth, awaiting a sign of solidarity or dissent. Marisol stepped forward. "We can't change the past," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. "But we can build a new tomorrow. What happens here today affects our children. Don't they deserve a chance to grow without the weight of our grudges?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but the old neighbor was relentless. "And you think a flower garden will fix everything? You left us. You abandoned us when we needed you." Marisol inhaled deeply, gathering her thoughts. "I made choices I thought were best for me, but I see that I also chose to run away from my community. That doesn't change the fact that I want to come back." Clara's eyes narrowed, revealing a flash of something, a spark of understanding, maybe. But the neighbor pressed on. "And what about the hurt you left behind? No garden can grow over that." Marisol opened her mouth to respond, but the words were caught in her throat. She turned back to the crowd, her faith wavering. Tom stepped up again, his face fierce. "This isn't just about Marisol. It's about all of us. We all have wounds from the past. If we can share our pain, maybe we can heal together." "Easier said than done, Tom." The neighbor shot back. "Some things can't be forgiven." "Maybe," Tom replied, holding his ground. "But if we continue to break apart, we'll lose everything that makes us who we are." A few heads nodded slowly, voices in the crowd beginning to murmur with uncertainty. Clara's gaze bounced between Marisol and Tom, torn between the fear of holding onto the past and the hope for a brighter future. "Perhaps we can start small," Marisol suggested, her voice gaining strength. "Let us plant these flowers together. Let us dig into the earth and show our children what growing really means, what it means to share, to forgive. It's not just about flowers. It's about our lives, our bonds." Silence enveloped them once more. Marisol could feel the enormity of the moment, hearts weighing the choices laid before them. Then, the unexpected happened. Clara took a bold step forward, grasping Marisol's hand. I can try, she said, a trembling smile breaking through her doubt. A collective gasp lifted in the crowd. It was enough to ignite hope. Are you sure? Marisol asked, filled with cautious optimism. I'm sure I don't want this division anymore, Clara replied, her resolve growing. But before they could fully embrace the wave of connection forming around them, the same neighbor barked, "You think we'll just forget? We have memories too. We can't pretend." Frustration bubbled up within Marisol. "No one is asking you to forget," she insisted. "But can't we try to move forward?" As the crowd simmered in conflicting emotions, Marisol began to realize there were deeper rifts than she had first thought. Would any of them be willing to step into this new beginning? The answer loomed, both delicate and heavy, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of hope they had begun to weave together. Would they? Could they? With her heart pounding, Marisol awaited their response, knowing that every passing second could tip the balance one way or the other. Would this community break apart or finally come together? The murmurs reverberated, wrapping around Marisol like a thick fog. Clara's grip tightened on her hand, a spark of unity amid the rising tension. But the old neighbor's words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Enough of this. Words won't heal our wounds, he continued, his face carved in anger, lines etched deep from years of carrying bitterness. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, uncertain but still listening. They wanted hope but feared the price of openness. Marisol's pulse quickened. Every heart faced a reckoning, and she needed to choose her words carefully. We aren't asking to erase the past. We're asking for a chance to pave a different future. But the neighbor scoffed. You think you can just come back and fix everything with some dirt and flowers? You'll always be the one who left. His contempt sliced deeper with each syllable. That might be true, Marisol acknowledged, her voice trembling but resolute. But if I've learned anything from my time away, it's that we can only move forward together. Silence stretched between her proclamation and the crowd's reaction. Anxiety fluttered in her chest. Had she gone too far? Were these words powerful enough to breach the walls that had been built over years? Then, something remarkable happened. Lucy, the small girl who had once radiated innocence, stepped forward, her resolve overshadowing her youthful uncertainty. My mommy says plants grow back if you water them, she called out, her voice small yet unwavering. We can make a garden here, too. Flowers need love, just like people. And we can love each other. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara knelt beside Lucy, brushing her hair back with tender affection, and the old neighbor stood silent, momentarily caught off guard by the purity of the little girl's heart. Marisol felt her heart swell with renewed hope. That's right, Lucy. Love and care can grow even from the darkest places. She turned her gaze back to the crowd, searching for kindred spirits among them. Imagine if we could come together. We could teach our children the values of forgiveness, acceptance, the strength of a united community. As a few in the crowd began nodding, she pressed. It won't happen overnight. But if each of us shares just a little bit of our hurt, we can start patching things up one seed at a time. Suddenly, a woman from the back stepped forward. I lost my husband because we couldn't find common ground, and I'm tired of carrying that weight. Her voice broke, but the vulnerability transformed into courage before their eyes. If you're willing to sow love, I want to help. More people began to step out of the shadows. One by one, they unfolded stories of pain, a fractured family, lost friendships, forgotten promises. And with each voice, a burden lightened, the weight shifting ever so slightly from their shoulders. Marisol watched the wave of healing unfold, an unexpected wash of warmth. But there were still many, like the old neighbor, who held on to their grief. She turned back to him, searching for a spark of understanding in his fierce demeanor. There's room for all of us in this garden, she said gently. But we need you. We need you to help us grow. The neighbor remained unmoved, eyes narrowed in skepticism. You think that just saying words changes anything? Perhaps not, Marisol replied, taking a step closer. But action will. Will you take that step with us? As the crowd watched, breathless in anticipation, the unyielding neighbor stood rooted in place. Would he take the first step toward reconciliation? The answer felt just within reach, yet the tension buzzed in the air like a live wire. Would he find his way to the vision Marisol was desperately trying to create? The next moment could alter everything, and everyone held their breath, waiting for the answer that would shape their shared future. The old neighbor's face was a mask of uncertainty, a storm brewing behind his steely gaze. Marisol could feel the weight of the crowd's hope pressing against her chest. They wanted him to say something, anything, that would break the ice and push them closer to healing. He shifted his weight from one foot to another, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. You think we just forget? He shouted, voice rising in bitterness. You think love can fix the scars we bear? You think I don't remember what it was like? Tension crackled in the air, as if the force of his resentment threatened to tear apart the fragile atmosphere. Clara squeezed Marisol's hand tighter, as if enveloping her in strength. Still, Marisol stood firm, willing her heart to speak instead of fear. It's not about forgetting, she shot back, her own tone rising to meet his. It's about acknowledging the pain and deciding not to let it define us. We've suffered enough. The words hung in the air like a challenge. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd, and some started to nod again. They could feel it, the hesitation in the neighbor's tough exterior. Marisol pressed on. You lost something precious, just like many of us. But you have to ask yourself, is holding on to that grief worth continuing the cycle of hurt? What could we build together if we decided to forgive? An unexpected silence fell, as if everyone held their breath, waiting to see how he would respond. His eyes flared, caught between anger and something else. Fear. Vulnerability. The crack in his armor widened slightly, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath. I lost my daughter, he finally said, his voice breaking. And I didn't even get to say goodbye. I can't simply let that go. Gasps filled the air, sudden and sharp. It pierced through the communal tension, shifting the focus. Marisol's heart ached for him. It was a reminder that behind every facade, there lay pain deeper than anyone could imagine. None of us expect you to forget, she said softly, grounding her voice with compassion. But we can't stay stuck in that grief. The garden Lucy spoke of, it can help us find a way to remember those we've lost while also allowing us to live. We can grow something beautiful from our pain. The old neighbor swallowed hard, his throat struggling with the weight of his words. He glanced around, taking in the faces of the neighbors who looked back at him, a mixture of anticipation and empathy shimmering in their eyes. I want to believe that, he said finally, almost a whisper. I just don't know if I can do it. Marisol stepped even closer, hope melting her fear. You don't have to do it alone. Every garden needs tending. Let us tend to it together. Something shifted then. The air felt lighter, an invisible weight lifted. More voices joined in encouragement, women and men speaking up, sharing their own fractured dreams yet daring to hope alongside him. With hesitant resolve, he turned toward the crowd. If we all want change, if you all want to plant a garden. He took a deep breath. I'll help. But you all have to be ready to fight for it, too. I'm not looking for half-hearted effort. Cheers erupted around them, a wave of sound surging into the stillness, and Marisol felt the rush of courage fueling everyone's heartbeat. But as they celebrated, the darkness still lingered. A question would linger too: would they all stay committed to the promise they made, or would old wounds rise up to challenge them once again? Just then, a chilling gust of wind swept through the square, rustling the leaves in a haunting reminder of change. There was still so much to face, so many unguarded hearts to mend. Let us start today, Marisol declared, raising her voice above the crowd. We need to plant our first seed right now. Who will join me? The evening sun dipped low in the sky, painting the world in hues of gold and crimson, a warning and a promise all wrapped in one. But deep inside, she wondered, could this new spirit truly conquer the shadows of their past? Everyone gathered closer, waiting for the next move, a question lingering on the tip of their tongues, longing for a commitment that would stretch far beyond a single garden. Marisol felt a surge of excitement as the crowd began to buzz with energy. "We can do this," she whispered to herself, pushing her fears and doubts aside. The old neighbor, standing taller, seemed to catch fire from the collective spirit surrounding him. "Let us gather what we need," he shouted, his voice now filled with newfound determination. A ripple of motion spread through the crowd as they broke into smaller groups, buzzing with purpose. The atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to a palpable sense of community, and Marisol couldn't help but smile. Clara let go of her hand, running off towards a group of men discussing tools. Marisol's heart swelled. She turned to the old neighbor, who now wore a hint of a smile. "What's the first step?" she asked, ready to help. His face softened, unmistakable gratitude in his eyes. "We'll need soil. That's where it all begins." He looked away momentarily, his past still hanging like a shadow, but this time it seemed a little lighter. "And some seeds, something that symbolizes hope." "Sunflowers," a voice called out from the crowd. It was Mrs. Thompson, a retired teacher who had lived in the neighborhood for over 40 years. They turned towards the sun. "A perfect choice." Marisol nodded, enthusiasm dancing in her chest. "Yes. Let us do sunflowers." "All right." The neighbor shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. "We'll plant them together. Our sunflowers will help us to remember and honor those we've lost, while forging a new path forward." His eyes sparkled, revealing a glimmer of the man Marisol now knew was inside. As they dispersed to gather supplies, Marisol spotted a few children from the neighborhood, their laughter cutting through the warm evening air. They were playing tag, their innocent joy a stark contrast to the heaviness that had settled in the square before. A little girl, no older than 6, paused to watch Marisol, her face scrunched up with curiosity. "What are you doing?" she asked, tilting her head, innocent and earnest. "We're going to plant a garden," Marisol replied, kneeling to the girl's level, her heart opening to the pure spark of hope radiating from this child. "A garden filled with flowers that tell our stories." "Like magic?" she asked, eyes wide. "Yes. Like magic," Marisol smiled, feeling as though she was already transforming the heavy weight of sorrow into a tapestry of hope. As the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere cracked with enthusiasm. The crowd formed small groups, collecting buckets, shovels, and soil. They laughed, shared stories, and began bonding over their common goal. But in the back of Marisol's mind, shadows still lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling that the emotional wounds they were addressing had many layers, and one beautiful garden wouldn't erase all the pain. She knew that overcoming the darkness would take more than just planting seeds. It would mean opening up, sharing burdens, and facing the ghosts that haunted each of their hearts. The neighbor stood at the center, directing traffic like a conductor. His voice carried as he organized their efforts. It was a sight to behold, a group of diverse souls finding a common purpose in the face of adversity. Yet, she felt a shiver run down her spine. What happened when the garden was finally sprouted? Would it survive the storms that would inevitably come? As Marisol gathered soil in one of the buckets, the little girl returned, tugging gently at her arm. "Will the flowers be pretty?" "Prettier than you can imagine," Marisol responded with a smile. But deep inside, she wondered. Could this magic truly win against the shadows of doubt and grief? With the first seeds in hand, they gathered together around a small plot of land in the square. Marisol raised her voice above the whispers of apprehension, "Let us plant our first seed." And just as she looked out at the crowd, a flash of movement in the distance caught her eye, a familiar figure on the edge of the square. Dark clouds drifted back in, the promise of rain punctuating the moment. Could their newfound hope survive the brewing storm? Marisol felt her heart skip. The familiar figure on the edge of the square sent a rush of emotions crashing over her like a tidal wave. It was Miguel, the man she thought had walked away forever. His deep-set eyes scanned the crowd, and for a moment, time paused. She hadn't seen him in months, and now here he was, in the middle of their fragile moment of hope. Just as dark clouds loomed ominously overhead, the crowd around her continued the preparations, unaware of the shift in the atmosphere. Marisol's hands trembled as she held the sunflower seeds tight. The weight of everything she'd been trying to build began to swell within her, mirroring the increasing gusts of wind. Despite the chill in the air, warmth spread through her at the sight of him, uninvited yet somehow familiar. "Marisol!" Miguel called, his voice breaking through the murmur of the crowd. Every eye turned toward him, and she felt every heartbeat accelerate in synchrony. "What are you doing here?" She managed to whisper, the words barely escaping her lips. Confusion danced in her mind. He hadn't been around when everything fell apart. Why show up now, when they were selecting the seeds of renewal? "I heard the news." His breath misted in the evening air as he stepped closer, each movement deliberate. "I wanted to see, to help." "What will you help with?" The bitterness crept into her voice before she could stop it. "You disappeared when we needed you the most." Miguel's face fell, no longer the confident figure she remembered. "I know I made a mistake. I didn't know how to face everything. But I want to try if you'll let me." As the wind howled softly in the background, Marisol's heart battled itself. Should she push him away, or could he be the ally she didn't know she needed? The irony was bitter. Here they were, attempting to lay roots in the ground while her own roots felt tangled in confusion and delay. From behind her, the little girl from before returned, tugging at Marisol's shirt. "Is he going to help with the magic, too?" She looked at Miguel with curiosity, blissfully unaware of the shadows that weighed heavy in the air. Marisol's breath hitched. They were all striving for light, but how could they grow anything in darkness? "Yes," she said, surprising herself. "He is going to help." Her voice faltered, a twinge of hope mingling with hesitation. What if this was just another false start, another promise that would falter in time? As she turned back to the crowd, the first drops of rain began to fall. At first, they were gentle, barely noticeable against the backdrop of laughter and excited chatter. Then they began to fall harder, one after another, drenching her skin, turning the earth into a mushy mess. "Everyone!" The old neighbor shouted, trying to rally the crowd. "We can do this. Let us plant those seeds before it gets worse." Marisol held her breath, unsure. Rain was a sign of growth, yes, but it could also wash everything away. She looked at Miguel, who met her gaze with an earnestness she hadn't expected. "Together," he said softly, holding out his hand. Just as she reached out to him, a loud clap of thunder resonated through the square. The crowd froze, staring at the darkening sky. Could their gathering withstand the storm to their hopes and the emerging past? Before she could answer, the skies opened wide, and the rain poured down in torrents. A wave of panic surged through the crowd, the moment of unity threatened by nature's fury. Marisol felt a tug of urgency. What would they do now? And as she looked toward Miguel, a spark igniting between them, she realized this might be the moment that defined them all. Would they rise together in the face of the storm, or would the downpour drown their hopes? Marisol stood amidst the chaos, the rain drenching her clothes but not her spirit. The dark clouds above mirrored the doubts lingering in her heart. The world around them was awash in uncertainty, but she could feel the warmth of resilience rising from within, not just her own, but from Tom, Lucy, Clara, and even the old neighbor. They had begun something beautiful, and she couldn't let it wash away. "Everyone, listen!" she called, her voice steady as the rain cascaded around them. "This storm is just a part of nature, just like the challenges we face. But together, we are stronger." Through the torrent, she saw a glimmer of determination in the crowd. People began to step forward, still holding their buckets and shovels, embracing the rain instead of running from it. Tom, Lucy, and the old neighbor joined her, holding their heads high. Let us plant those seeds now. Tom shouted, his voice rising above the clamor. Rain or shine, we need to put them in the ground. We can't let anything stop us. Marisol nodded, the spark of hope igniting a fire within her. She grabbed a handful of sunflower seeds and knelt down, wet earth seeping beneath her knees. Who else with me? We're planting love and hope today. Hands shot up all around her. The crowd surged forward, neighbors collecting soil, gathering seeds, laughter now mixing with the sound of rain. The heaviness began to dissolve as a sense of pure unity filled the air. Even Clara was there, planting seeds while holding Lucy's hand tight, overcoming her own past hurt for something greater, and then, Miguel stood by her side, his own seeds in hand. Let us do this together, he said, earnest eyes meeting hers. We're in this. All of us. The storms raged, but inspired by Marisol's movement and Miguel's resolve, the crowd began to dig into the muddy earth. Each seed dropped felt like releasing a tether to their struggles, a desire to sow new beginnings. Marisol smiled through the rain, grateful and aware of how far they had come. As she planted her seeds, she turned to see the faces surrounding her. The strengthened sense of community sparked a newfound connection. They weren't just planting flowers, they were planting forgiveness, love, and understanding within each heart. Each voice was unique, all were woven together by shared stories and struggles. In that moment, the old neighbor knelt next to her. I was wrong, he said, his voice softer now. I've held on to bitterness for too long. I want to change. Then let us change together, Marisol responded, brushing the rain-soaked hair from her forehead. Thunder rumbled overhead, but instead of fear, they laughed, each peal of thunder like a drumbeat to their collective hope. Even Clara knelt down with Lucy, leading the younger kids in chants, promising to nourish each flower with stories of courage. As the storm began to ease, sunlight broke through the clouds in vibrant bursts. Marisol glanced up, her heart swelling as it illuminated the garden they had fostered, rich in color and life. The community stood together around it, not as isolated hearts, but as intertwined souls committed to cultivating something magical. I'll be here every step of the way, Miguel promised, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. We can grow through anything if we face it together. Marisol looked at him, at the garden emerging in all its glory, and felt peace settling in her heart. This was the moment the transformation they had long sought was finally within reach. As they finished planting the last of the seeds, a magnificent rainbow arched across the sky. An incredible mix of orange, yellow, and green splashed against the backdrop of the soaked earth. Marisol caught her breath. Just look at that, she whispered, pointing toward the horizon. It reminds us that even after the toughest storms, beauty can emerge. Joy erupted around her, laughter ringing out as they marveled at the rainbow, a promise of hope. In that moment, they understood, acceptance, love, and a united future were their most potent flowers yet, blooming from this very ground they had fought to protect. Together, hand in hand, they stood before the rainbow, hearts woven into the promise of a new tomorrow. It was their own garden of hope and love, a tribute to all those who had come together against the tides of adversity. And she felt certain of one thing: this was only the beginning. Now, make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories just like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. And comment below your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about this jaw-dropping ending. You need to support the channel. True fans understand the importance of these actions.